And we begin this week one day after Easter Sunday in a strange place in America. You see, it seems like disaster is all around us, doesn't it? Both internally in this nation and then overseas as well. And the Biden administration seems to be doing nothing at all, but to continue inflaming those tensions at home and completely ignoring what our enemies abroad are doing to weaken this country. And even though they are intentionally inflaming political division here inside America's borders, because that's what the Democrats do in order to win elections, they aren't trying to solve any problems. No, because even attempting to solve problems would pose a big problem for Democrats. They'll have to make up even more problems to be aggrieved about. But I'm sure they would find something. That is the victimhood mentality that they use so often, fear. Victimhood. One of the topics the left is using to divide us is what they call gun violence, or what I call violence, or violent criminals. It's not gun violence, it's just violence, you see. Because criminals are the ones that cause the violence, the death, the destruction, the mayhem, and it is Democrats who refuse to lock these people up. But no, they say the issue is the gun itself, not the person using it. We'll hear a lot more about that this week because of the shooting in Louisville this morning. Details still coming out about that, but it is something you'll be hearing about all week. Several people killed at a downtown bank, and it's newsworthy. It is. Absolutely. It's a tragic failure that authorities can't seem to do anything to stop before they happen. One side says it's time to take away all guns, cancel the Second Amendment. The other side says we need to lock these criminals up. Because most, quote, gun deaths in the United States are not from mass casualty events with AR-15s, but with handguns. So it's a real problem with systemic gang violence. And the politicians who run America's major cities are refusing to do anything about that either. We also have radical DAs like New York's Alvin Bragg and others promoted and then financed by leftist billionaire George Soros. And no, left-wingers, it's not anti-Semitic to bring up George Soros' name when he's funding the campaigns of the district attorneys who do not want to get violent criminals off American streets. That has nothing to do with a man's culture or religious background. It has to do with his politics, which are lousy for you and for me and for everybody else. And for some reason, though, Mr. Soros wants that reality for everyday Americans. Not for him, though. That has to make you wonder. Is it just because of a left-wing ideology that's imprisoning violent offenders? They call that racist, or is there more to this entire thing? Do these leftists in power want to destabilize the country? Because it looks like it, and that's exactly what they're doing. And make no mistake about it, Democrats in power do think destabilizing the country will grant them even more power. Oh, we're here to help. We'll need more control to help. Get them to pass more restrictive rules, more directives, more laws that they feel will ensure their power is protected. They'll say they're protecting you, but really they're protecting themselves, the money train, and the power. And look, I'm not talking about your average leftist American who's been brainwashed by Hollywood and the media, of course. Some of them genuinely do feel like the left's answers to these problems will help, like further restricting the Second Amendment, even though you and I know that won't do much of anything to help. Or even repealing it altogether, the Second Amendment, get rid of it, forcing gun buyback programs. Some of these people mean well, but they're just misguided. They do not understand America or why it was founded at all. They're simply wrong. And we need to engage with these folks. We do. We need to engage with these folks. Try to explain, if you can, to the ones that will actually listen. And it can happen because brainwashed leftists wake up and decide to switch to conservative principles every single day. Not just at the rates we would like. We'd like it to happen more often. But the leftists in power, whoa, they are the ones with the agenda. They are the ones brainwashing and fear-mongering on these issues and so many more every single day. And again, it's all for exactly one thing. It's all for power. And while they attempt to enact their plans here at home by causing more division and more strife for the everyday American, our enemies abroad are taking notes and making moves of their own. And the Biden administration couldn't care less, it seems. China, Russia, Iran, all making moves to undermine the United States around the world, and it seems their fledgling plans are starting to work out. The only question now is if we have started to react much too late. Speaker Kevin McCarthy hosted Taiwan's president last week. Here's what he had to say about China and how they responded to the situation as they militarily encircle Taiwan. Listen.
When we watch what's happening in the world today, a movement and a gathering, it looks like a little of a new axis of power. I think back to what could have the lawmakers done then, that never took place in the 30s. So today we're looking at to make sure that we have peace going on decades in the future. I think it's fitting that you're here under Reagan's library. This is what he advocated in a world that was dangerous. He advocated peace, and he found a way to do it. That same place here. So for a China should not fear. A China should engage with us.
Now, thankfully, a few Democrats in Congress back him. You could see some of them standing with Republicans right there. And as much as Speaker McCarthy would like to say that we are all united on this issue, we certainly are not. Certainly the White House is not. And we've learned through history the only way to confront bullies on the world stage is to answer them back with strength and call their bluff strategically when necessary. We actually got that with the previous president, Donald Trump. Do you see the difference when America's enemies detect weakness with Joe Biden in the White House? And even America's allies in Europe are taking note, with French President Emmanuel Macron making some concerning statements after a trip to communist China and openly questioning whether the United States is an ally they should stand with. For real. He said in an interview with Politico, quote, "The paradox would be that overcome with panic, we, Europe, believe we are just America's followers. The question Europeans need to answer is it in our interest to accelerate on Taiwan? No. The worst thing would be to think that we Europeans must be followers on this topic and take our cue from the U.S. agenda and a Chinese overreaction." Macron also referenced the U.S. dollar during the interview and said that Europe should reduce its dependence on it. So why do you think he said those things? Why? Well, it's because Europe senses what the rest of the world senses. America is declining, being run by weak and corrupt leaders who care more about destroying our country from within so they can be rulers of the ashes than building it up and maintaining the general peace in the world we've enjoyed since the fall of the Soviet Union. So Europe is hedging its bets, not looking to stray too far from America quite yet, but also leaving the door open to cut that relationship off if they think it's in their best interest. And that's why they would want to reduce their dependence on the U.S. dollar, and that's exactly why our enemies want to do so as well. While America is distracted over debates about the Second Amendment, debates about transgenderism, racism, and all the other isms, and grievances the left wing has decided to invent to retain power, the world order we've built is starting to crumble. That's what's happening. That is the real existential threat to America. But unfortunately, our current leaders simply don't seem to care. They don't seem to understand that socialism, Marxism, communism, and all of these far left-wing agendas when it comes to government are deadly. Remember, the Great Leap Forward in 1959 brought the deaths of tens of millions of Chinese. The Great Leap Forward was nothing more than a leap into the grave, a leap that, well, we should never take. We'll leave it there for now.